Hi, Russell. Hello, Sarah. This is we're gonna be going into the next week of Disney's 100th anniversary. It's This episode is called Disney's Folly, and we will be discussing Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah,
Um,
I got seven little gems in here.
uh,
Yep, see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
nice job. Uh, Julia couldn't make it tonight because she had a little conflict, but she did tell me to say hi to you. So
Yeah,
I
okay.
invited Russell instead. How are you doing,
Hi,
Russell?
Russell.
I'm doing all right, hanging in there. My
Okay.
birthday's in a couple days.
Oh yeah, happy birthday to you. I'm
Yeah, February
also
1st.
also additional hang on, I want to show you something real big. Oh wait. I got my
Mm,
MacBook Pro.
yes,
Sweet.
that is a laptop.
It's a very good laptop.
By the way, where'd you get the classic Star Wars poster in the back?
Um I got that one year for Christmas.
Oh, I like that Baby Yoda picture above it too.
I got that for Christmas too.
Oh, that's sweet, man. Always rock the Grogu, man.
Yep.
Oh,
So
March 1st, man. March 1st.
March 1st for Mando season 3. All I want to do is see my baby grow up like any other good father.
Right
And
now, I'm watching Bad Batch. That's really good. I like the Clone Wars, uh, Star Wars stuff too.
yeah,
Some really good stuff.
definitely. So yesterday I was able to see 85 years after Snow White was released, uh Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I heard so many good things about it. It was blowing up on my social media feed, memes. I was seeing pictures of the death, the wolf. I was hearing about a panic attack scene, and then I end up seeing the movie. And once the panic attack scene comes on, I cry. I cried. It was so touching. It was just a wonderful thing. And Walt Disney himself was now gonna make a big challenge. Could he now make people cry over cartoons instead of just simply laughing at them? So let's because animation and movie industry has a lot of debt to Snow White. So let's get on with the story.
Okay, you have 15 minutes.
When we last left off, Walt was Walt had but Mickey Mouse and Silly Symphonies, and now some new characters to play with: Donald Duck, Goofy, Clara Cluck, that cow character, Black Pete, and he was expanding the Disney cinematic universe. So, but he had to diversify beyond shorts. He needed to do something. He was going to use a special story to get what he wanted. So after exploring several options, he settled on Snow White. So one winter's night in 1934, Walt Disney told some of his staff to grab dinner, giving them each 50 cents, then come back to the soundstage for an emergency meeting. In front of 50 to 75 employees, lit by a single spotlight, Walt began telling them the Snow White story, acting out all the parts, going through every moment. The animators were enthralled. They seemed to think they were making another Silly Symphony short, but this wasn't any short. Matter of fact, there was nothing short about this at all. Walt Disney was planning to make the first ever full-length feature animated cartoon. And when it got to the press, they gave the nickname Disney's Folly. It's not really a word commonly used these days, but I believe it means you gamble and you lose.
Yeah, I think nowadays it's more related to like foolishness and trouble.
Or something like that. Yeah. Despite this, the Disney staff got to work on this right away for the next 3 years. Not only did every technique of animation production the studio conceived, now like a factory and streamlined, get deployed during the making of the production, but some new techniques were brought in as well. Rotoscoping, which is filming someone enjoying the over the movements frame by frame was first used by the Fleischer Studio, but now Disney was going to perfect it for human movements because they couldn't really get lifelike human movements at that particular point in time. Another innovation, the multiplane camera was going to add new depth and dimension to animation by putting in multiple layers of art and perspective to give the animation impression of three-dimensional photography. Every short that the Disney studio ever made has led to this. Yeah, he put that in a trailer. So now Walt was wanting to add pathos, ethos, and logos to animation, which hadn't been done before at this point. Adriana Castellati was the first person ever to play a lead role in an animated feature. She played Snow White. The Seven Dwarfs.
I think she was like 18 when she started doing the voiceover at
yes,
that time.
Yes, exactly. The Seven Dwarfs themselves were given intense design and personality performance, plus names. Some of them were rejected. One of them being Snoopy before this guy came along. Yeah. And 25 songs were written for the film, but only 8 made the final cut. Scenes were animated but scrapped, such as the dwarves eating the soup, the dwarfs making a bed for Snow White, and a scene where the dwarves agree whether Snow White should stay or should she go. Bam, 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 bam.
Provided by the Clash.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Okay, yeah, wait, no, I gotta find it. Yeah, wait, no. Okay, scenes were blurred but never used. However, got used later in other Disney films, 2 of which ended up in Sleeping Beauty, where a scene where the queen captures the prince, and a scene where Snow White has her fairy tale wings in the clouds. Another moment during story sessions, they were talking about the shot where Snow White falls through a hole and then is hanging from a vine, and one of the artists was like, wouldn't a fall like that kill her? It shocked them that they could kill a cartoon character, which they were, 1.5 characters to be precise. New staff was added to help complete the feature, some of whom would later become known as Walt Disney's 9 Old Men, the top animators who perfected the Disney style and created the 12 principles of animation. During the ink and paint process, the only place at that time women worked at Disney, they applied actual makeup to Snow White so that she would look stunningly beautiful. I mean, they didn't really have the kind of money for a feature. I mean, $1.5 million was a lot for the Disney studio, but less than half of the budgets of 2 1930s classics, The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind, both costing around $4 million. In a memorable story, they sought out a loan from Bank of America. Walt was reluctant to show unfinished animation to a banker because there was rather little to show since not everything had been completed. Walt Disney could have walked away from the banker without anything, but the banker, as the Disney family would tell the story, caught Disney in a parking lot and told him, have all the money you can get. Good luck, Mr. Disney. You gotta make a hatful of money on that picture. You got distribution rights to Snow White, and any other future Disney project would go to RKO Radio Pictures. RKO was one of the 5 major studios at that time, the others being MGM, Warner Brothers, Paramount, and 20th Century Fox. Attempting to get a huge amount of artists to complete the animation, Walt sent out a big call to art schools everywhere, and they hired more assistants and betweeners, cleanup artists. It was a huge operation just to get this thing done by the Christmas 1937 release date. There was no comparison, no rules, nothing like this has ever been attempted. They were breaking new ground. And finally, it would make its premiere at the Carthay Circle Theater on December the 21st, 1937. Walt Disney, by now, was a celebrity and respected in Hollywood, though through pole clubs and elite meetings. So through these connections, he was able to invite every big gun in Hollywood to attend the premiere of Snow White, including his idol, Charlie Chaplin, along with the biggest stars of the time, such as child stars Shirley Temple and Clark Gable and Carole Lombard, these really ancient people. Walt really wanted an emotional impact on the audience and to not have them laughing at the hard moments. He didn't want to be chased out of town by calm people saying, hey, go back to Missouri, farm boy. I don't know if
it's not even part of the book.
No, it wasn't. I just put that in there. I thought I'm not. I mean, by now, given all the stuff humanity does now is I wouldn't be too surprised if they would stoop down so low. Okay, so the movie starts and audiences oohed and ahed at the opening shots of Queen Castle, something Orson Welles really loved and would use later in the opening shots of Citizen Kane. He was scared to death of the scene where Snow White is running through the supposedly haunted forest. They laughed at the antics of the 7 dwarves. They sneered and hissed at disapproval of the queen. And still, Walt wasn't satisfied. The true pathos came when the dwarves would be crying over Snow White's apparent death. I believed he shakes legs too. I mean, you're talking about a guy who's comes from a guy who shakes his legs all the time when doing just basic mundane stuff.
Yeah, so he was like shaking his boots in anticipation of the
I don't know. I
premiere.
mean, I think he might have been shaking his legs for a legitimate reason. He was like, I spent so much money on this. I gotta work. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose. Clutching his wife's hand for about like 75 minutes or so as the movie played. So once the scene came on where the 7 dwarves were crying over Snow White, well, let me tell you how I saw it the first time. As a person on the autism spectrum, it's hard to show any kind of emotion so early in your childhood. And I thank Thomas the Tank Engine for teaching me emotions in a unique way. When I first saw that scene, there could have been a subliminal message or a secret method of connecting the dots. It's as if the movie was silently saying to me, be sad, be sad. All the times I heard Ringo Starr or George Carlin say Thomas was sad somehow transferred over to the dwarf's funeral for Snow White. The expressive faces almost matched Thomas's.
Yeah, what are you talking about? A conspiracy theory going on? That's what it sounds
and
like.
the look with tears coming down gave it that extra subliminal signal of sadness, even if I could not feel it fully. It just looked like the saddest thing to me ever when I first saw it. I would later find out in later years, turns out I was not alone. At that first screening, the audience were just bawling. It was incredible. They were crying over a cartoon. What happened was that Walt was able to connect the realms of imagination and our own sense of reality, combine them together, and embed them into our own subconscious. And it's not kid stuff. It treats you like an adult. As the movie ended, the crowd erupted into a thunderous standing ovation. One Hollywood notable said that Snow White matches the level of impact that sound had on the movies. Even one producer gushed, I could not help but feel I was in the midst of motion picture history. Even Cecil B. DeMille, a big Hollywood director who made this really old movie called The 10 Commandments, twice, he telegrammed Walt saying, I wish I could make pictures like Snow White. One review in the paper said, Disney's Folly makes history, and still another review said that the movie was as important as The Birth of a Nation or The Birth of Mickey Mouse. This Birth of a Nation being this really, really old.
Hey, Jordan, you got 5 minutes.
Snow White would gross $8 million in its first run, considering that a movie ticket cost a nickel back in those days. If you do the math, that means 160 million different people saw the film in the late 1930s. It was the highest grossing movie of all time at that point until Gone with the Wind beat it. Adjusted for inflation, Snow White is still the highest grossing animated feature of all time. It was the success of Snow White that led to MGM to make The Wizard of Oz, which is also a classic. According to Walt Disney's own words, with the profits he made from Snow White, he was able to build a dedicated animation studio in Burbank on 51 acres of real estate, the very studio I toured last year. By now, it seemed like he could do whatever he wanted in animation after Snow White, but the last thing he was expecting was geopolitical turmoil that would eventually plunge the world into a second world war and create diminishing returns on the movies after Snow White. Did that stop Disney? Nope. He just kept on plugging away because if he could do one animated feature, he could sure as heck do another one. Next week, Walt Disney begins the 1940s with his second animated feature and crafts the company's official theme song. How do you like that?
It's interesting you mentioned that Disney was kind of over budget on this, and the same thing happened to George Lucas when Fox was kind of wondering if the first Star Wars film that I grew up watching was going to go anywhere, and they were just screaming at George, you're taking too much time, you're going over budget, this ain't gonna make any money, and of course now we know it brought back the science fiction genre into
Yeah.
a new set of life. So it's kind of interesting that history kind of repeats itself, that and also, if it wasn't for Walt Disney, there would be no Japanese anime. With the original cartoon short that he did, basically made Japan think, well, if he can woo audiences with animation, then we must have the arm race of animation. So they kind of, instead of the space race with the Russians, we were having an arms race of animation with Japan, and then they had like Gigantor and stuff like that in the 50s. So therefore, we wouldn't have the Japanese explosion nowadays that's constantly competing with Disney and any other content creators in the West that's making any animation features, whether it's Australia's Bluey or whatever. It's just a constant competition.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Like the old saying of iron sharpening iron.
True. That's a good analysis. Iron sharpens iron.
iron does indeed sharpen iron, and I mean, Walt was just indie at this point, and so was Lucas. He was only just getting a bigger company to help distribute his project. I mean, the company that was distributing it wasn't really making it. It was only just it was it was Lucasfilm that made Star Wars, and it was Disney that made Snow White. RKO did not make Snow White.
Yeah. I mean, RKO was like the distribution place at the time. I haven't seen those superimposed titles for much of their first G films.
I mean, these are just first generation films. They just and to me, I really enjoy this stuff. I mean, I had the VHS as a kid, and I loved running through it. And there were certain moments that still seem to pop up in my head whenever I'm encountered with common everyday situations. I mean, because
Yeah, Jordan, your face is frozen.
oh,
wait,
I'm fine. You gotta lag. I'm sorry. Oh man. Well,
Anyway,
actually know what the
I was
next
just trying
scene
to.
is.
I was looking for
I mean,
some
well,
bonus
yeah.
content on the plus to learn something new, and apparently they were mentioned like in like this 70th anniversary documentary. They mentioned how they were like this one man. I keep forgetting his name, but yeah, he was like from Sweden and had like that heavy European illustration that was like ideal for the.
Yeah, he
And
drew
he
a
was
lot
like
of backgrounds to
well,
make it look for lush forest settings.
yeah, well, especially they were like style art, the kind of that's like it's just like those stills of its own medium, but yet conveyed like the same feelings that the animators wanted to do for the animation format.
And the ending with the music and that going to a big crescendo and stuff still gives me goosebumps every time.
It's kind of like when 2 times in my childhood that I cried in the theaters. First, when Captain Kirk is giving the speech, about Spock when he, they're kind of shooting him out of space with the space torpedo, having the Spock's funeral. I cried at that, and I cried at the death of, a robot, Optimus Prime. Those are the only time. So you kind of like what Jordan was saying is, when you're on the autistic spectrum, I'm kind of on there too, that sometimes it takes a while for you to learn to understand how to show emotion, especially sadness or happiness, anger, or whatever emotion you might have trouble with. And that's why we enjoy the media, is it helps people like me and him be able to get out of our shells and be able to be more expressive and stuff like that.
In a lot of ways, it helps us prepare for the
So
real.
anyway, I was Gonna say that I think, the yeah. Yeah, the real yeah, the thing about what makes, movies emotional is that, yeah, make sure you take the time to listen to it, to really experience it. I mean, there's a lot of characters to like relate to, which is quite definitely a strong point for the Disney studio around this point in time. I mean, the story arc between Snow White and Grumpy is a very important connection to have as it really conveys the real climax to come.
Yeah. Yeah, he has the biggest nose of all the dwarves.
Yeah, it definitely looked like a potato when he was hiding in the sack.
Oh man. Oh man. Great stuff.
Did
Yeah,
you
they
know they? Sorry. Did you know that they actually threw away the animation cells for Snow White and threw them out in the dumpster? And one lady saved one that had Snow White in the drawers, and she put it on Antique Roadshow. And they said, I forget how much they appraised it at, but they basically said there would not really be a real good amount due to the fact that that's the only animation sale that survived from that classic. And as a collector, I have two Inuyasha sales. Inuyasha was the last anime to use animation cells, and I also have one Sailor Moon animation cell. So yeah, it's I consider that a dying art since the West stopped using animation cells, in the 90s and went more to computer animation, whereas Japan was still in the late 90s, still using animation cells. So yeah, it's not only that, it's just a proof of the achievement of
but
art.
don't like computers do? But can we? But aren't there like computer tools where you can still like do cellular animation?
Yes, definitely there are. Russell, I can give you some links later on about people that actually do stuff that of that kind of nature in a computer.
Okay,
I
that's
know
cool.
Dan Povenmire is still doing it with Hamster and Gretel.
Yeah, yeah. If you want to know one thing about Sarah Russell, she enjoys the Disney works of Dan Povenmire, including Phineas and Ferb, which has gotten a 40 episode renewal.
Okay, we got a Jordan. So anyway, I need to go and get some dinner. Okay,
Okay,
see you
Right.
next week.
Take care.
Mhm.